Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with atbbq.com, and this is pork chops with Dijon Cream Pan Sauce. Well, today I want to share with you guys a crazy good recipe for pork chops that are seared and then braised in a cast iron skillet. And then we take that braising liquid, we turn it into a Dijon Cream Pan Sauce that you can smother your pork chops in. Now this recipe is good enough that you're going to want to serve it on special occasions, but to be honest, it's easy enough to do it any day of the week. Now today we're going to be cooking on the Konnected Joe Konnected Joe. And it fires itself up on its own, it'll light the charcoal on its own, but we do got to get it loaded up with some charcoal first. We're loading it up with some Konnected Joe big block charcoal. Change that to get some of the bigger pieces on the bottom. And make sure that we've got airflow as well. So I'm just gonna kind of leave a little bit of room at the front. So close up the lid. We're gonna turn this on. We're gonna set our temp all the way up to 600 degrees. And it lets you know to close that door. Don't open it while you're cooking unless the top's open, otherwise it's gonna shoot fire at you. But then make sure you know that. Okay, 600, set that temp, adjust the top vent, it says all the way open, and then we'll fire it up. So now typically at this point you're gonna go back inside, you're gonna do just a little bit of knife work while the grill heats up, but that's assuming one thing, and that's that your pork chops are already in brine. Now ours for today are, and we are gonna be brining in this recipe to make sure that we keep these pork chops as flavorful and juicy as possible, but since we haven't done that yet for you guys, we're gonna do it now. So I've got a couple of pork chops here, we're just gonna do 2 in a skillet at a time. These are Creekstone Farms, fantastic pork. This has got the bone attached, so not only are you getting the pork chop, you're also getting kind of the baby back rib there as well. Before I throw these in, we're gonna mix up a little bit of our brine. So I'm gonna do 1.5 quarts of water, which will require 9 tablespoons of our Butcher House brine. Now this is just a really basic brine. I mean, it's your salt, sugar, got a little bit of onion and garlic in it, nothing crazy. It's a great base for a lot of things. You can add more flavor to it if you like, or just use it as is. But what's important about this brine is that it's going to add a ton of flavor to these pork chops. And the great thing about this dry brine is that you don't have to heat up the water to bring everything together. It's just gonna dissolve right into room temperature water. One of the biggest reasons that people don't care for pork chops is because it's a leaner meat. You can see there's not a ton of fat running through that pork. So it's really easy to dry it out. And then once it's dry, it's really not any fun to eat. But there's 2 things that we're gonna do today to really prevent that. The first is brining, and the second is making sure that we cook it to the proper finishing internal temperature. Now time-wise, you wanna, if you can, give these at 2 hours, but it's okay to leave them in the fridge overnight too. So like I said, we have just a little bit of knife work to do. We're gonna mince up this shallot. We need about 1/2 cup. That's gonna go in the sauce. We got a little bit of garlic we're gonna break down with the microplane, about 1 tablespoon, and then some chives to finish. I want pretty fine pieces here. I call it a mince. The chives we're just gonna mince. And then we're gonna do our garlic. We're breaking this down on the microplane, super fine. It's much quicker than mincing it. And it melts it down to the point where it's just gonna like kind of meld right into this sauce. So we're looking for about 1 tablespoon. So now I'm pulling out the pork chops that have been in the brine. I put these in brine as soon as I woke up this morning, so it's been about 6 hours now. I'm just gonna rinse the surface off so we don't have too much salt on the surface, because I do want to apply a rub here. But a lot of that salt has also made its way inside of the pork now, which is what we're really going for when we brine something. Now I'm gonna pat the excess moisture off. I'll address real quick too, you may have heard that you should not rinse your meat. And while I agree with that in a lot of situations, like I don't ever rinse raw meat, when I am pulling something out of a brine, sometimes I don't want all that extra salt on the outside. So that's why we're doing that today. And by doing it in a container rather than your sink, you're not splashing everything all around. It's all contained to any possible contaminants. Before we Put our dry rub on. I'm gonna put down a little bit of the Dijon mustard that we're also gonna use in our pan sauce to act as a binder and add just a little bit more of that flavor. Now for our seasoning today, we're using the Cattleman's Grill Trail Dust. This is an all-purpose rub that I developed for the line. It's great on pork, chicken, beef, all kinds of stuff. Now it is a rather chunky rub, and since we're gonna be doing a pan sear, I don't wanna just burn up those spices, so I'm gonna break it down super fine in the Phena-Mill, and then we'll have a really fine, much more broken down consistency that just kind of melts into the pork, and rather than those big chunks burning up. Now this is also gonna kind of season the sauce, because as this braises, some of this is kind of wash off the surface a little bit, but it doesn't hurt anything because you're keeping it in the sauce, so it's still all there. All right, so now that we've got these fully seasoned, let's go throw the cast iron skillet onto the grill to preheat it. Hot in here now, up to 600 degrees. We're just gonna let that preheat for about 5 minutes. Skillet's nice and hot now. We're gonna throw down about a tablespoon of olive oil, and then we're gonna lay our pork chops right in there. So at this point, the goal is not to cook the pork chop through, it's simply to get a nice sear on the surface, and we do that for a couple of reasons. The first one being the flavor it creates on the outside. With that Maillard reaction happens, the browning creates a lot of flavor. But also what's gonna happen is we're creating a little bit of fond in the bottom of the pan, and that's the stuff that sticks to the pan, and that's gonna work its way into the sauce, and it's got a lot of great flavor as well. There we go. So we got some of that sear on there, some of that fond left behind. That's what we're going for. So probably less than 10 minutes total now on our sear time. We're gonna take these out and they'll finish cooking in the braise. So now I'm gonna add a tablespoon of butter that is melted in the Kansas heat and our ½ cup of minced shallots. We're gonna cook these shallots down until they're nice and translucent, just starting to take on a little color. Now we're gonna add in a few sprigs of fresh thyme and our tablespoon of garlic. Let that garlic start cooking down. Only take about 30 seconds here. And then we're gonna deglaze everything with a ½ cup of white wine. We're using a Chardonnay today, but anything kind of dry, like a Pinot Grigio, or Cab Sauv, anything like that will work. I'm gonna let that cook down until it's pretty much gone. So just a few minutes later and almost all of that wine is gone. So now we're going to add a ½ cup of chicken stock. We're gonna return our pork chops to the skillet and just let them kind of do a gentle, shallow braise here while that internal temperature continues to rise up. We're gonna pull these chops off when they hit about 140. It's been about 7 minutes now and we've hit our target temperature of 140. So we're gonna take this one off of here. This one's got just a few more degrees to go. All right, just another minute and this one's finished. So now we're gonna make our sauce out of what's left behind. We've got all this great reduced flavor here. We're gonna get our Coslicks Dijon back out and throw down about 2 tablespoons. Also gonna add a ½ cup of heavy cream. And then we're just gonna let this simmer until it gets to the consistency that we're looking for. All right, so check out how it's filling in a lot slower behind now. That means it's thickened in consistency, and this is right where we want it to be. So the pork chops had a good 5 minutes to rest now. I'm gonna cut the bone out and slice this so we can plate it up. Look how juicy that is. It looks incredible. That's right, pretty much your baby back rib meat right there. Now there's your lean pork chop, which still has plenty of juice inside. I'm not gonna squeeze it all out, but you can see just how moist it is on the surface there. Can't waste the board juice, it's too tasty. So pour it back over the pork. We're gonna put down a good layer of some rustic mashed red potatoes. Lay out our pork chop on top. You throw some asparagus on the plate and you got a full meal here. Don't forget those extra juices. We're gonna fish out that thyme that was in there. And then spoon a little over the top. Dijon Cream Pan Sauce. Finish it off with just a pinch of chives on top. All right, let's get a bite. That's ridiculous. My goodness, I'm gonna need 2 bites. That mustard taste is so prominent. It's wonderful, but it's creamy, obviously, because of all that cream we added. Pork's got great texture to it. Not too tight, not overcooked. Still super juicy, thanks to that brine, and then again, the finishing temperature around 140 to 145. And then you combine that mustard cream sauce with those potatoes. It's like mustard gravy, which I don't know that I would have told you sounds like a great thing, but it tastes like a great thing. Well, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to check out atbbq.com for all the products featured in today's video. If you enjoyed the recipe, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to atbbq.com/thesauce. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.